Good evening, everybody. How's it going? Okay. Hopefully everything is sounding okay. So, let me know how things are streaming and how things are looking. I've kept the quality the same, but we had our internet upgraded. I mean, I'm still in the basement, so the reception is probably ass from down here anyway. But let me know if everything is sounding and looking okay. Mind the comics, AFPC. How's it going, gentlemen? I missed the hangout this afternoon. I wasn't able to make it on Larasa's channel. We were out for probably a little more than half of the broadcast. I came back and got to catch the tail end last hour or so, which was great. But I still wanted to do this. So last week, thank you very much, AFPC. Um, last week I had done one video about this my 500 comics goal hashtag that I did on Twitter, and today is the meat of it. And as I was pulling books, I didn't pull everything um, because there's just too much. As I'm pulling stuff and I'm looking through the list and I'm looking through the books that I'm pulling, I mean, as much as I love the Marvel, DC, Image, everything that I talked about last week, as much as I enjoyed that stuff, this stuff that we're going to talk about tonight, this is the stuff that gets me most excited about comics for the most part. I have in front of me a stack of Cinebook, Humanoids, Comcat, Catalan Communications, etc., etc. And then to my right, I've got stuff, small press and indie, old underground comics, some manga, graphic novels, small press from kind of the 80s and things. So this is the stuff that excites me the most when I read comics. So I thought we'd just dive right in and just kind of look at all of the I guess, quote unquote, European comics, even though they're not all European, but for the most part, they are, minus a couple here. So we'll start off with the no-brainers. So the stack of Cinebook that I read this year, probably this, not to, still a sizable stack. There's not much to talk about here. There's not going to be many surprises. I'm now 14 volumes into the Thorgal series. And I mean, I've talked about it a number of times. It's still one of my favorites. I should also say that when putting together this list, when I was going through this list last week and just kind of looking at, looking at the books and putting them in some sort of order, and trying to put together kind of a top 5 or even a top 10 or hell, even a top 20, looking at things and constantly crossing things out and changing numbers, I kind of came to a list. And then I look at it tonight and I've just kind of thrown it out the window. It's really, really difficult to put all this in any sort of, here's my top 5 books. I will say, though, that Thorgal, since discovering it a couple of years ago, is kind of continually, every single volume that I get, I completely am in love with. I think it's a fantastic read. The art is gorgeous. The stories are really great. And again, it's a genre that I never thought that I'd get into as much as I have. This kind of fantasy, magical kind of world. Even though there's still a lot of, fighting and bloodshed, there's still a lot of kind of fantasy, heavy duty fantasy elements to it. But the other thing that impresses me about it too is kind of this, almost tales of survival. Again, like with the Doctor Strange reads and things, there's these kind of visiting these spiritual, other dimensional planes, I guess spiritual planes, to battle other gods, to kind of walk through the land of death to rescue lost loves, that sort of thing. Every single time I pick up a volume, and I think there's at this point, 22 volumes or something like that, I think, that have been put out by Cinebook. I love them every single time. They're really easy to get your hands on. I've used Book Depository I've used Book Depository for getting all my volumes. I was lucky enough to find a couple locally here, not that many. When I went on a work trip to Toronto, I found a ton of them. I found a ton of them there. And I don't know, it's another one of those series, like, as much as it's great to start from the beginning, when it comes to some of the English editions for some of these books we're going to look at, especially the series, when it comes for the English editions, for some reason they decide to mix the stories around and just kind of not do them in the order that they were published. So I started reading this series with book number 4, which was called The Archers. I believe it was book number 4 that I started on. And I thought it was a really good introduction. Then I worked my way forward and backwards. And now I'm sort of reading them in order, probably starting at around volume 7 or so. I've been reading them in order. And I don't think it hurt me whatsoever, just jumping in where I could. So the creative team is John Van Ham is the writer. He also does 13, which is another fantastic series. And then Gregor Rosinski is the artist there, AFPC. Hopefully that'll... will it focus? Probably not. But anyway. So Rosinski and Van Ham are the creative team on this one. Yeah, and honestly, anytime you see a book, give it a shot. And another that I started, and I haven't picked up another one yet. It's been on my wish list for a while. It's another Rosinski art book. This is Siobhan, I think is how you pronounce it. It's been a long time since I've read this one, this Lament of the Lost Moors, so I can't remember too much about it. But again, it was similar because the art was the same, or the same artist rather. It helped really suck me into the story. There was enough here that got me interested. I just haven't placed the orders for the next ones. They are on my wish list though, so it's going to be something that I will dive into sooner than later. I kind of have a running wish list on Book Depository, and I've just started sending that link out when people are asking, you know, birthday or Christmas. I just send the link, and just anything from here, go for it. Yes, Book Depository is kind of affiliated with Amazon, which does give me does piss me off a little bit, but I'm a junkie. I figure they're one step out, doesn't justify shit. I'm a horrible person. And then another one from Cinebook is this 20 Years Later. This one didn't do as much for me. From what I remember, it was this kind of story revolving around a plane crash and this group of people that had all crashed, and just kind of how their lives intertwined afterwards. Jean Van Ham is the writer of this one. And like I said, he was Thorgal in 13, as well as Largo Winch, which I read recently as well. Didn't make the top 500, didn't make that list because it was after. But yeah, I think this was just a one-shot as well, right? Yes, I believe this was just a one-shot. So it's Cinebook has this line that's espresso, the espresso line. Western was another title that that was on this espresso, and they kind of have that label as just to identify stories that are standalone. They're not part of a bigger series. So those are the few Cinebooks that I've read this year. Moving on to another one that'll be pretty quick to go through, Humanoids. What was Tylox saying up here? Show me things I'll love and I probably can't find. Yeah, I mean, fortunately, some of this stuff, Tylox, like I said, there are resources out there. I've seen them pop up on eBay as well too. But I mean, like I said, Book Depository is good. There was another one, Abe Books, I think too, ABE. I think they had some stuff. They sell. It's mostly people from all over the world selling used copies. So there's a lot of bookstores that have pages on there as well too. So you are paying shipping because you're buying directly from these stores, but it's a pretty good resource for searching for stuff. I found the stuff that I found on Abe Books. The prices have really been hit and miss. They've really been all over the place. So that's a little bit of trouble there, but there is still a pretty good selection of stuff on there. So the next set of books from Humanoids, obviously one of the big ones that I've spoken about in videos already, The Metabarons by Jodorowsky and Jimenez, or Jimenez. And yeah, not much to say about this. It's an absolute killer book. It's quite an undertaking, creating this entire history around a group of this kind of group of people, or this family, basically. But a hell of a read. So I won't say too much more about that one. Also on the list was Milo Manara's The Golden Ass, which was fantastic. I think this was one that Mind the Comics had recommended to me. It was probably Mind the Comics, Paulo Costa, and Gore Vidal. Now that I'm thinking about it, it was probably all three of them. But I'm really, really glad that I picked up this one. Milo Manara's stuff is beautiful. This book is really great. I mean, you're not getting anything that you probably don't already expect when you're getting into Manara. A really entertaining story, and it doesn't hurt having some naked ladies in it. And these next two, they were just so damn good. There's a third book in the series, and I just can't find it. And when I do find it online, it's unbelievably expensive. There was a trio of books from Luc and Francois Scoiton, the Hollow Grounds trilogy, Carapaces, and Zara. And these were collections of early stories. I think the stories collected in here were the first stories that they did. So you're getting to see Francois Scoiton's artwork kind of evolve throughout this trilogy. These two I was lucky enough to find here locally, but I haven't found the third one. And like I said, looking online, and I'm blanking on the title of it, but if you just search the Hollow Grounds trilogy, you should find them. Siobhan. Okay, cool. These were so great. I mean, I love Scoiton already, and it's funny, when I first discovered him, I remember picking up this book because I got this one at Red River Bookshop. This is the first book in the trilogy. I remember looking at this and putting it back down because it didn't appeal to me, the art in this one. But once I was familiar with his stuff, looking back at this one now, it's still really, really gorgeous. He's not fully uncovered his style at this point, but you can definitely tell that it's him. There's no mistaking his hand. The stories are really, really great. Just a collection of short stories that were, I'm assuming, published elsewhere. I don't think there's many credits at the beginning here. Let's have a quick look. No, it just has the English language edition and the original French edition, 1980. So maybe it was collected as one book. Fantastic stuff. Any Scoiton you can get your hands on, I wouldn't hesitate in picking it up. If you're unfamiliar, give anything a shot and see what it does for you. I love these ones so much. They got the stamp. They're not leaving the collection. These are Comic Crack books all the way. And here we go. This was such a gorgeous story. This one too. This group of people that have to keep moving because the land behind them is curling up over top of them, and if they don't keep moving, they'll be kind of flipped upside down with the landscape as it's kind of rolling behind them. And this one girl decides that she's had enough of this continual walking, and she's going to stay behind to see what it is that they're running from. Very imaginative stories, very inventive. Like I said, beautiful, beautiful artwork as well too. Yeah, so I mean, these are definitely right near the top of the list as well as far as stuff that I've read this year. Um, Another one that I'll just quickly fire through. Modesty Blaze is kind of a recent discovery. There's been hits and misses with Modesty Blaze. I haven't loved everything that I've read. I think at this point I have 4 or 5 volumes. They were published. There was Titan Books that published a couple. Maybe it was Titan for the next series too. I just know that they changed format. The format got a little bit bigger, but this is a collection of comics, of strips. Some fantastic stuff. Gore Vidal has recommended this in the past too. Has been one of his favorites as well. Really, really great. Jim Holdaway is Peter O'Donnell is the writer. Jim Holdaway is the artist in the stuff that I like the most so far. There was a number of artists throughout the series, but Jim's artwork while he was around, while he was with us, was phenomenal in this. I've talked about this many times too, so I won't say too much more beyond that. A new kind of discovery. I think it was Joan and Jello that turned me on to this. Our friend who does a lot of gaming videos, but also dips his toes into some comic videos. He was showing off these collected Topi books, this volume 2, North America. And as he was flipping through, it immediately went on my list. I think this was another purchase through Book Depository. I think immediately after watching his video, I think I went and found it and ordered it. And it came pretty damn quick. Gorgeous artwork. Some fantastic, again, a collection of short stories centered around North America. There's a lot of stories focusing on indigenous peoples of North America as well, which is a real sweet spot for me as far as storytelling goes. I love that kind of stuff. But his artwork is just gorgeous. Really, really gorgeous stuff. The way he uses the page, the way he uses the white on the page. Really great. Highly, highly detailed stuff. I'm not sure if this is up to volume 4 or volume 5. This is the only volume that I have so far. Again, the other volumes are on my wish list and will eventually make it here. And that one is put out by Magnetic, is the name of the company there. Topi is top. He absolutely is. It's really, really fantastic stuff. The Collector. Okay, I don't know that one, Ragamuffin. I'll have to take a peek. So the couple, let's see, what do we have? We only have 2 from Comcat. Give me one sec here. Is this all Catalan? Yeah, all of this is Catalan. So Guido Kripax, another artist that I've just grown to love more and more. Again, another Gore Vidal video recommendation when he started talking about Valentina. This is the infamous story of O. This is the first volume. These people that live in a house and basically submit to kind of being, I guess, the bottoms or being the subordinate in these sexual relationships. There was a movie made of the story of O as well, too. That's well worth checking out. But Kripax's artwork, like it is in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, is beautiful. And again, another guy, the way that he uses the page, these kind of things, multiplying the panels on every single page and all these little details with these smaller panels here. Incredible stuff. This is thanks to Greg Harder here locally. When he puts out his lists, oftentimes he'll have some kind of European and kind of way out of the mainstream, more adult-oriented books. So anytime I see those on his list, even if I don't know what they are, I always jump on them and get them off of him right away. So that's fantastic. Erotica. Yeah, it's the label there, Erotica, which was a subsidiary of NBM. 2 from Comcat Comics. And I enjoyed these both enough. Uh, I don't know how much I'm going to be kind of chasing after this. Yoko, Vic, and Paul. This is book number 2, The Three Sons of Vina. It was an enjoyable read. Definitely something that seems to be geared a little more towards younger readers. It was still enjoyable. The artwork is really gorgeous, but it didn't make the top of the list for me. I'm glad I gave it a shot, but I don't know if I'll be kind of rushing out to grab some more of these. Might pass this one on to Lillian. We're trying out some different comics and stuff lately together, so this might be one that I'll put on the list that I can read with her and see how she likes it. And again, one that we've talked about before, I know Mind the Comics is here, and we've spoken about this. The Adventures of Blake and Mortimer. Gorgeous artwork. The wordiest comics I think I've ever read in my entire life. Not as much of this volume. I have the first volume as well too, and I want to say that the first volume was even more wordy, just very, very dense storytelling, but really beautiful coloring, beautiful art, a joy to look through. Yes, this was the first one there, Time Trap. But yeah, so yeah, Blake and Mortimer. That's all I got to say about that. A couple of volumes of Valerian, all from Dargo, another fantastic company. Anytime I see the Dargo name on something, I'm picking it up. This Valerian took a little bit for me to really get into the feel of it. The first, I think I have about, do I have 5 or 6 volumes at this point? The first book or 2 that I read, they didn't jump out at me. I enjoyed them, but it did take a little bit of time. But once it did kind of hit in a big way. Very imaginative worlds. The idea of this space exploration and being able to tell these stories about all these different races from all across the universe, I think is a lot of fun. As kind of Valerian and I'm completely blanking on her name right now. As our 2 main characters. I can't believe I'm blanking on her name. Anyway, as our 2 main characters, kind of the representatives of Earth are going around and meeting these different alien races and species and just kind of discovering what I like Blake and Mortimer just for the suits and pipes. Beautiful. Just kind of discovering what it is out there, and this space exploration, I think, is a lot of fun. So that was Heroes of the Equinox. Welcome to Alphalol, LOLOLO. And then World Without Stars. Again, I think for this English translated stuff, Laureline, thank you very much, G. I think for this English translated stuff, they published it well out of order. But it doesn't seem to affect the stories too much. And you can see some, to sell it to the American audiences, what the American cartoonists say about Valerian. So you get like Jim Steranko, Gil Kane, Roy Thomas, Len Wein, Will Eisner, Harvey Kurtzman, all just saying how much they love Valerian just to sell it to the Yanks. One of the artists I discovered very, very recently, even though, again, it's another one where the stories don't always hit for me, but the art is exceptional, especially the way he portrays kind of movement in the strips. And when I was talking about these books, I remember highlighting that in a video as well, too. This is The Adventures of Rocco Vargas. This is Triton by Daniel Torres. Another one from Catalan Communications. I think I have 3 volumes of this as well now, too. Stunning stuff. Let's see if we can get to, there's this constant, it's one of those, even though it's not dynamic in kind of like a Marvel Comics way where everybody is coming towards you, there's this constant almost sense of motion with all of the characters within the panels, and how they and just how they move through space and how they react to each other. It really gives you a really nice sense of things are happening. These are not just characters on a page that are standing still. They're interacting with their world. They're interacting with each other. I wonder if this was the book. With the car speeding off. Yeah, here we go. These pages here, like, there's so much damn movement on every single one of those panels, especially up here with the car racing around, stretched out just a little bit with some of those extra line work, the fighting in the snow over here. Really amazing stuff. Beautiful to look at. The stories didn't stick with me whatsoever, but the art, exceptional. There was one other, I thought, in this story that really displayed that motion really well. Unfortunately, we do get some stereotypical, I mean, you know, yes, the character is green, but his kind of servant with the big white lips, even though he's colored green, it still is pretty distasteful. So if you can look past that stuff to enjoy the art, I've been able to. It's hard not to notice it, though, to be honest. And that's not the only time that sort of thing happens. But I mean, look at this very clean style. Beautiful. So that's Adventures of Rocco Vargas by Daniel Torres. Let's see. Maybe this can go here. Yeah, why don't we talk about these? Let's save that one for last. Save these ones for last here. Bilal and Christian, The Ranks of the Black Order. Again, I've spoken about this. Oh, hello, Chaos and Comics. Yeah, no, I ditched them. Screw those guys. So The Ranks of the Black Order, Christian and Belial, fantastic story. They have a series of books that kind of are kind of more historical, or kind of using history as their jumping off point, which, as I've spoken about before, sometimes works for me and sometimes doesn't, just because I don't know about the specific time periods and the places that they're talking about and the points in history that he's referring to. So I feel that some of it is lost on me. Pardon me. This one was a really enjoyable read. These kind of older, not quite anarchists, but definitely more far left leaning revolutionaries in their old age, still fighting the same fights, and kind of gives you the sense of how pointless this is. Yeah, no, I need to be the center of attention, Chris. I need to have all the focus on me at all times. So this one, I really loved this book. This was a fantastic read. Another one that didn't quite stick with me, Burton and Sib from Antonio Seguera and Jose Ortiz. Again, gorgeous art. I remember them being kind of comical, ridiculous stories. They were this pair of con artists, and just some of the kind of hijinks that they get into in, I think, 3 or 4 short stories, probably published previously in Heavy Metal at some point. Not much has stuck with me from this, to be honest, at this point now. But again, always well worth checking out. Let's move this back here because those guys go together. I'm sorry for knocking the microphone. I apologize to your family, generations of your family afterwards. Let's go to some dirty comics. This is Necron number 3. I'm on the Cartoonist Kayfabe Facebook group, and somebody actually found, I think, the first book in this Necron series. I think there was only 3 from Magnus, which I think was a couple of different creators going under one name. This was ridiculously fun, completely over the top, violent, just completely out there. Not one that I've ever seen. Even looking online, finding the other volumes of this, I haven't had much luck even in finding this book. One of those that's kind of lost to time, I guess, or the people that do have them are too embarrassed to admit it, so they're not even putting them up for sale. They have them in they have them. How could I get tired of penis jokes? How? It's not even possible that I could get tired of penis jokes. They have them in some box hidden in their closet for their family to find after they've died. And I can't believe Dad was into this filth. But me, here they are. So that was fantastic. Again, not to be taken too seriously whatsoever, but a lot of fun to look for, or to look through rather. One of the ones that I thought I would never actually get to see with my own eyes in person is Squeak the Mouse, and this came up again on Greg's list here in town. And I mean, what can I say about this that hasn't been said already? Ultra violent, the influence for Itchy and Scratchy, a collection of silent strips, and it just gets more and more violent as you work your way through the book. Really, really fun. Tom and Jerry to the extreme. Not for the faint of heart. For all you Johnny Ryan fans out there, this is for you. As Stan Lee said, comics have to give you a hard-on, true believer. Good comics, sorry, give you a hard-on. There you go. Speaking of hard-ons, Vittorio Giardino, Little Ego, another one that Gore Vidal had recommended, and this was actually on a wish list from I don't know how long ago. I think it was on an eBay watch list or something, but this was, I'm really glad to get not only this one, but this I think was even more enjoyable, this Deadly Dalliance by Vittorio as well too. This one is a collection of, it's kind of a takeoff on Little Nemo, obviously. So just quick strips of Little Ego having kind of sexual dreams and waking up from them, going into this fantasy world at night. They were great, really enjoyable for sure. But I think this one hit even more for me. This is a collection of short stories, and they're all kind of, there's 6 of them. They're kind of all crime, almost like crime and noir stories. This was such a good book. I think this was probably the highlight out of both of them, I think. So many good stories in this one. Catalan seems to be the company that I've found the most of. I don't know. I'm assuming then that they were the kind of publisher of this kind of stuff that lasted the longest. Cinebook being one that's still going, but it feels like of this time in the 80s and 90s, they just kind of outlasted everybody else. You guys should include a rotating guest slot, 4th mic for the Sunday chat. Yeah, I mean, anybody, as we've said before, anybody who wants to come on the show, it's an open invitation. Anybody can come and hang out. Yeah, and yes, AFPC, if you ever want to come on, please let us know. Another creator that I discovered very, very recently, Francois Bouc, and this one would be probably thanks to Earl Grey, The Magician's Wife, and Billy Budd, KGB. I think Mind the Comics was talking about this one too on Twitter. I love his style. Billy Budd was a great read. Even though the end kind of left me scratching my head a little bit. And in videos, I've talked about Bouc's style when it comes to drawing humans. He does not draw attractive humans, or at least to my eye anyway. They have life to them, though. All of his characters have definitely lived a life. Again, it's how do you get these two-dimensional characters to kind of exist in kind of a time and place. Their surroundings for sure, but seeing kind of the lines on their face and seeing the kind of they're just beaten down some of these characters over time really gives you a good sense of what they've gone through. That was really great. But the one that I'm going to talk about last probably is one of those that's near the top of my list. And again, Earl Grey has talked about Matoti in a video, but this is Fires. And again, it's some of this that I just don't know how I've gone so long without kind of trying out some of these artists. But I'm sure as hell glad that I'm giving them a shot now and kind of discovering these things now. This was such a gorgeous book. I'm desperate to find some more of his work. It's especially tonight, collecting all of these books and looking through the list has done a lot of, it's reminded me a lot of some creators that I'd like to kind of do some more digging and do some more searching for online. And Matoti is definitely one of them. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Amazing use of color. It would have gone, I think maybe he spoke about it when he was talking about his use of color in comics in a recent video where he talked about City of Belgium. Beautiful. Highly, highly recommended. Gorgeous, gorgeous book. And again, so that's all the Catalan stuff. So that's it for kind of that world there. And again, it's impossible to put together kind of a top 10 or a top 20. But it's been phenomenal reading with all of that stuff. And I think as much as I love, again, even the stuff we're going to look at now, as much as I love it, all of those Catalan and NBM and Cinebooks, and it's really exciting. And it's also so great. I've said it a million times before, and I'll say it a million more times. Fantastic to have some people in our kind of small corner of the comic world here on YouTube, like Earl Grey, like Mind the Comics, like Paulo Costa, like Gore Vidal, who talk about some of these books from not just North America. So there's a lot of stuff that's just kind of come to my attention through some of those channels and some of those guys. So it's really, really fantastic. That was some fantastic reads. So then going on, so this last section was even more difficult. If that section was tough to kind of sort through and figure out what it was that I loved the most, this last section, which is kind of everything else. So it includes kind of small press stuff. It includes 80s kind of indie stuff. It includes art comics. It includes some newer stuff from some smaller publishers. There's stuff from Vortex Comics here. There's stuff from Ablaze. There's stuff from Boombox. There's stuff from Boom Studios. But then we also have New Comics Group, Eternity, etc. So again, there's not much order going on here. So I'm just going to dive into it, and we'll just pick it up as we can, bits and pieces. In the world of manga, I can pull all of these out and we'll look at all of these at once. Jiro Taniguchi, I've got 2 of his books now. The Walking Man is absolutely one that blew my mind the most. Fantastic stories. I mean, I feel like I'm just saying the same things over and over again, but it's gorgeous art. It's beautiful to look through. It's very unique storytelling where it's literally not much happening other than a man walking through the city, walking to work, walking back from work, walking around on his weekends, just going out for a walk and interacting with the neighborhood, climbing trees, watching kids play, all of this very kind of mundane day-to-day existence, but thoroughly enjoying his surroundings and exploring his surroundings. This was such a good read. And again, another one, pulling it off the shelves again. This will be sitting by the computer because I'll probably read it again. And it was another one that my son jumped into as well too and enjoyed. The other one that I have from him, no, it just kind of looks like it. It's just a thin line. It is inked, but there is some digital stuff going on too. And again, I don't think my camera quality is going to pick it up too much. Plus the lighting in here. Yeah, you're not going to be able to see it, unfortunately, Damien. have a look for his Walking Man online. I'm sure that there's some images if you do like a Google search or whatever. There's a certain kind of texture to the backgrounds too, to the leaves and trees. Almost has kind of a digital texture to it. And then the characters kind of placed in. It doesn't feel out of place though. That's the thing. As much as that kind of look is there for some of the backgrounds, especially the foliage and the grass, the characters don't look out of place, but it is a very thin line. We're not talking lots of textures and hatching and big backgrounds and everything. It's very just a good use of space. Fantastic stuff. Love this book quite a bit. Well worth checking out. I'd love to read more like this from him. Running out of space here. Let's put that over there. And kind of going further away, this is from Retrofit. And who else? Ryan Holmberg did the translation for this one, and he's done a bunch of translations for manga. And this one completely blew my head off. This is absolutely top of the list for me as well, too. So this is Bloody Stumps Samurai. What a fucking story. The history behind it is pretty incredible, about this group of people in Japan who were really just looked down upon. The Ita people, I believe, ETA. And just kind of this journey of our main character and just everything that happens to him. And it just doesn't stop. His kind of motivation to become an incredible samurai and to fight, fighting through tears. And I won't spoil the end, but just kind of as it builds, when you think that it can't possibly get any more harrowing or just insane, it just keeps getting more intense until you kind of reach the climax. I'm not sure. I believe so though, Raga. Yeah, there is a history by Ryan Holmberg at the end there, and he does talk about censorship. I don't know if it's come out there since. Yeah, okay, so I'm not going to show any more past there because I really don't want to spoil it. I really feel that if you're adventurous and if you do enjoy manga already, I highly recommend you check this book out. This is an unbelievable story here. I think you can still find it online. If you check out Retrofit's website, I think they have it. A couple of the other independent and small press places, but Retrofit, I think, still has copies of this. And one that I've kept my eyes open for, and I just can't find the other volumes. Urasawa Tezuka, Pluto, his Pluto series, which I think is at 9 volumes, based on a Astro Boy story and characters, and kind of taking that as a jumping off point. The storytelling that's going on here, and Urasawa's ability to kind of give emotion to these characters and the relationships between these humans and these robots. This story, funnily enough, jumping to this one in the first book, it's some of that magic that I've talked about before that can happen in these books, and you just can't put your finger on it, because especially with something like manga, as we've talked about before on our Sunday show, you're, for the most part, and this is a very, very broad generalization, you're getting very similar art styles. There's almost like a house style to some degree for a lot of manga. So, which makes it even more impactful that you're able to get the emotional kind of resonance that he's able to get in this 4 books that I've read so far. Really, really incredible. Yeah, I mean, there's not much more to say about it, but I don't know much Urasawa. Dr. Monkeybot had recommended this one because he'd read the whole thing and absolutely loved it. He's read also, I think he read 21st Century Boys was another one. I think Monster he's also read. Some of Urasawa's other stuff shows up at the bookstore. I haven't tucked into that stuff yet, because oftentimes with the Urasawa that does pop up, book 1 isn't around. It's like book 3 and book 4 or something. And with his stuff, I feel like you do have to get in from the ground floor in the series to kind of go on the journey, because a lot of this is about the journey, especially this story too. So the first 4 volumes popped up on Marketplace here, and I'm really glad. Again, one of those I'm glad I jumped on. I think the guy who was selling upgraded. I don't know if there's a bigger collection of these, if they've been collected in 1 or 2 volumes, but he was selling these for dirt cheap, so I couldn't pass them up. And then book number 4 there. So good. In the world of a couple of books that I'm glad I got my hands on finally, I've talked about these and I've shown them in videos. 2 books that were exciting for me to add to the collection. So this is The Collected Trash Man from 1970 or 1969. Let's crack her open. Trademark. So newspaper style. What is this? The Red Mountain Tribe production. Fat City and Red Mountain Tribe. So a collection of Trash Man strips. 25 cents. Let's have a look here. Yes. Great stuff. A year is what I was looking for. I almost want to say 1969, but I don't believe that's correct. And of course, there's not going to be anything to tell me otherwise in here. Anyway, this was maybe one of the pricier things that I picked up this year so far. It wasn't the cheapest, but I'm really glad to have this. A lot of this stuff has been reprinted in Subvert Comics, but there was some stuff here that doesn't exist in any reprint that I have anyway. They may very well have been reprinted in other formats, but it's incredible. Absolutely incredible. So a really nice one. Spain Rodriguez. Nice to get some Spain Rodriguez. Some of these underground newspapers would be fantastic to get your hands on, but they're not the cheapest. And then the other one that I got my hands on this year that was kind of a grail for quite a while, and I'd been watching on eBay for quite a while, was this Doctor Strange, and then flip book with Conan the Barbarian. Limited edition of 1,000 copies. So this is 1973. John Thompson, and I did a close-up video where we literally went through every single page of this. Not quite treasury size, but a little bit bigger towards a treasury edition. Beautiful line work. He was a hell of an underground cartoonist. He didn't do a boatload of stuff, but the stuff that he did do was kind of head and shoulders above anything else that was out there at the time for underground comics. He was really doing his own thing. But again, some of this work is just beautiful. But yeah, like I said, there's a video out there on it. They were 11. Oh, AFPC. I have a few of those. I haven't, what was his name? Was it Johnny Zero that had told me about that? Johnny Zero years ago sent me a couple of those. They were 11. And I started reading them, and they're amazing, but I can never find the remaining issues. Really great. On Man Ben, the show, which I think Man Ben has made it to YouTube as well too. You can see the subtitled ones. There's an episode where they focus on her, the creator, whose name I don't remember right now, but just kind of talking about it's Man Ben is a show where they follow a manga artist throughout kind of a week. They set up some cameras in their workspace, and they focus on them creating this manga. And then afterwards they sit and talk with Urasawa, tie into Pluto here. They talk to Urasawa, and he just they just look at the footage and talk about how they came to doing manga and why they're doing certain things, and just they look at their technique and things. So there's an episode that focuses on her and her kind of style and the genre of manga that she chose to work in. I think the censorship came from just the portrayal of those peoples and some of the way that they were talking about them, and a lot of kind of it was seen as this is for Bloody Stump Samurai. It was seen as they were just being there was this that they were being portrayed as lesser than this group of people, the Ita people, in this book. So I think that's why the censorship happened from there. Johnny Zero had a baby years ago. He lives in the Hamilton, Ontario, and that kind of just took over his life there. I haven't talked to him in years, Damien. He was a hell of a good guy, though. Really, really nice guy. And yes, he did come on the channel a couple of times. We were reading the DC Helix sub-label books together and just kind of speaking about them. Why don't we save this over here? We'll do those last. Let's do that last. Let's talk about some of this. We'll end on some small press stuff. I think probably right near the top of the list so far, along with Monster, and my favorite thing is Monsters. Paying the Land by Joe Sacco. Completely destroyed me as a read. What a story. What an artist. What a storyteller. What a fucking harrowing bit of subject matter, and just the way that he talks about the way Indigenous peoples in Canada have been treated, all aspects, starting from a point of fracking and mining, and then just kind of going off from there. This was a phenomenal read, and I would recommend this for everybody to get your hands on. I haven't read much Joe Sacco, but I'm absolutely keeping my eyes out to read some more. And again, I think the biggest thing that worked for me was gorgeous art, really dense story, and he's talking about a lot of history here, but it didn't feel overwhelming. It felt overwhelming because of the subject matter. I had to put it down because of the subject matter, but I didn't have to put it down because it was difficult to follow or difficult to understand what was going on a page, even though a lot of times he's not using kind of traditional layouts and paneling. His ability to tell a story on a page in this kind of non-traditional way, I think it's not difficult. It really flows naturally. And this also feels like a book that would be accessible to a wide variety of people, even the people who quote unquote don't like comics, those infamous groups of people that we're always trying to get to enjoy comics. But this was top notch. See if I missed anything there. Yeah, it was. Yeah, the Johnny Zero was years ago at this point. Yeah, it is crazy how quick it's gone here on our YouTube. So there's Paying the Land. Again, won't say anything more beyond that. It's fantastic. So in the world of kind of rediscovering some small press and 80s, one of them that stood out to me, and even when I think back on it, how much I enjoyed it, was this Frankenstein 3-issue miniseries from Eternity Comics from probably, I'm going to say 1987, because it just seems like 1987 was that magical year. I really loved the way this Frankenstein story was told in here. I really enjoyed the artwork. It was right on the cusp of being kind of, it wasn't quite there, but because it was just off by kind of a half step, still really, really beautiful work. And just the storytelling again was great. And again, it's one of the things that Damien and I have spoken about is, this idea that, yeah, new comics are really expensive, but for those of us who are fortunate enough to have comic shops and mini comic conventions and things in our city, there's still 50-cent and dollar bins out there that can yield some incredible stories if you just give it a shot, give them a chance. So I would highly recommend this one. This was very, very enjoyable read about Frankenstein's monster. And this was probably my favorite cover of the three. Has some Ted McKeever vibe going on that cover as well. I'll just quickly show you. That's cover for issue number 2. And then the cover for issue number 1. And again, I can understand seeing a cover like this and not necessarily being attracted to it and not necessarily thinking you want to give something a shot. But part of the fun, again, of exploring these cheap bins, you just never know. So that's from Eternity Comics. Oh, I was going to look at the year. Looks like that might say 1988. Oh, yeah. Seriously, even these first pages. Fantastic stuff. Written by Martin Powell, illustrated by Patrick Olaf, lettered by Clem Robbins, and edited by Chris Alm. There's the credits there. I should remember to say the credits. Anyway, great one. One that kind of took me by surprise. It feels like he's another creator that I'm kind of getting a little more in tune with, even though there's stuff of his that I've read that didn't work for me at all. Howard Chaykin's Big Black Kiss from Vortex. I loved this story so much. Even though some of it I can absolutely see it being a little distasteful these days. I can only imagine what it was like then, but especially now, the portrayal of trans people in here isn't the greatest. But I think that the kind of storytelling that he's doing here with this kind of this succubus, I guess, and these kind of mystical creatures or these fantastical demonic creatures in kind of flesh, in human form, I think is really an interesting subject. And it's more of his kind of Chaykin noirish storytelling in a really, really seedy world. There's not that many redeeming characters in here. I had a couple of these in the single issue format, but the single issue, they were like these little pamphlets. I've since traded them away and was lucky enough to finally find the 3 volumes of this. This is the way to go if you can get your hands on it. It collects a bunch of the issues in 1 volume. I think probably 5, or maybe it's 4 or 5 in each of the volumes. And again, one of those other ones that you can find fairly cheap if you do some digging. And then this is issue number 3. I know that there was another series after this, 1 or 2 more series after this in the Black Kiss world, but I haven't yet dug into that, and I don't know if I will because, well, never say never. But these ones worked for me as a series, and I don't really see the need to read some more. But who knows? And I think the one that's not going to come as any surprise to anybody, one of the ones that completely knocked my socks off this year was The Young Master. Such a good series. Alex Nino is in here. Chuck Dixon is in here. Larry Hama is in here. And of course, the man Val Merrick is in here. I discovered it from just picking up the second series called The Master. I had picked up 1 issue of it and loved it, and did a bit of research on it and found that it was originally The Young Master, then moved to the Demon Blade, and then went to Master, where it only had those 2 issues. This series could have gone on 100 issues, and I would have been there for every single one. This was such a good samurai story here. Merrick's art is stunning. The storytelling is really, really great. Yeah. Again, you can see my catalog and you can see that I've raved about this a number of times, but Such a good comic. And again, one of those that you can find in the dollar bins if you're lucky enough to have those at your disposal. Keep your eyes out for this. And honestly, there wasn't very much that came out from New Comic Group. There was another one called Asylum as well, which was kind of a horror anthology. I'd say that any of the New Comics Group stuff that you can get your hands on, go for it. I've looked online a couple of times for any Young Master original art from Val Merrick. I would love to get a piece. Haven't found anything yet. I've found some stuff that was sold years ago, but nothing currently for sale. I check every once in a while just to see if something pops up. I did send him a message at one point. He does have a website, and I thought I'd take a shot in the dark. And I sent him a message saying, hey, I have a YouTube channel. There's 3 people that watch me. You comic creator types seem to enjoy going onto channels like that. Do you want to have a chat? Or something like that. Surprise, surprise. I didn't hear anything back, but I thought I'd give it a shot because he would be a great guy to talk to, I think, about this series. I know that he's moved on from comics and works in advertising and things like that, but from a little piece of an interview that I saw with him and so James Hudnall, I think, James Hudnall brings up the Young Master, and Merrick's eyes kind of widen because it's not something that people talk to him about a lot, and it's one of his favorite pieces that he's done in his comics career, is what he was saying. So there's the Demon Blade, and then here's the 2 issues. This is Chuck Dixon and Val Merrick on the Master. So it's the Master kind of leaving Japan and getting on a boat and kind of fighting with the people on the boat, but it just ends after 2 issues. It doesn't go any farther. So check those out. Almost there, people. This has been a long one. I appreciate you all hanging out. This one I talked briefly about previously because Damien had sent me the Conan magazine where it's the Red Nail story. This is the Cimmerian, not the Chimerian, not the Chimerian, not the Chimerian, the Cimmerian. It always takes me a minute to think about how to pronounce that. This was my introduction to these reprints from Ablaze. I've since put them on my subscription on my pull list with Galaxy. I love this story. I just have the 2nd issue from the new one that's out right now. I haven't read it yet. I just picked it up this afternoon. But this was really, really great. The art in here is beautiful. I love it. I love these covers. I love the character design. I love the story. This Red Nail so far has been my favorite. Mamo, beautiful, from Boombox. Issue 2, I just picked up issue 2. My daughter and I read it this evening just before she went to bed. Issue 2 again is like a double-sized comic. So this is a $4.99 comic, and it's probably 2 issues thick, each one of them. So it's like there's been 4 issues. Such a good read, a really great world, some gorgeous art, gorgeous coloring, a really nice premise of this witch of this village that's died, and her daughter, who's now sort of taking up the mantle to or not her daughter, sorry, granddaughter, who's kind of taking up the mantle for this town and has befriended this other girl. And kind of what happened in the 2nd issue is we found out that when the grandmother died, she wasn't buried properly as a witch should be. So her bones have been scattered. And because her bones have been scattered, it's causing some chaos within the town. So their job now basically is go to find all of these bones. Such a great story. My daughter is really enjoying it too. She was kind of snuggled right into me and silent through the whole reading of issue number 2. So I think this is a really fun one, especially because both the main characters are these females, these young girls, and they're the ones that are taking on this mission of protecting the town. So that's been a really good read. But I think as far as this stuff goes, right up there for me, a favorite of the year is Layla Starr so far. I think there's 1 issue left to go. I love this book. Every single issue is fantastic. It feels like every single issue gets better than the one before. Issue 4 was such a good read. but every single one, I'm completely in love with this book. This is right up there with Carmen for me as far as a series that I'm just eating up. So that's it for that. So for the last few, it'll just be kind of the small press and indie books. And we'll fire through this one. Charles Forsman, 10 issues of Atoma that I have so far. And I've spoken about this in a video as well too, and we've looked through some of the pages. Love this book. It's one of those that kind of starts out as almost like a crime fiction, but then sort of has these elements of sci-fi and just kind of goes off from there. So it's one of those books that's really exciting to read because I just don't know where this is going to go. I don't know how many issues he has so far. I want to say it's like 18 or something. He's got quite a lot of them, but I've read the first 10, and I need to get my hands on more because that's such a good book. Another one I've spoken about before, Detective Double Digest. 2 creators, 2 short stories. I loved them both, but I think this first one here, let's see creators' names here. Pete and Drew. This is Double Digest number 2. The first one, I haven't been able to find. It's long out of print. I think the first Double Digest was horror books. Was kind of a takeoff on like the horror kind of anthology. Beautiful art, really nice texture to this paper, especially to the cover. Has kind of this soft texture to it. Where was my favorite line in this one here? When they go to find this artist. What does this look like to you? God damn it. It looks like a busted mirror trying to pass as something profound. Ugh, wrong. It looks like your busted attitude reflecting back at you. I don't got no time for this wannabe cop routine. I got glue to sniff and artwork to make. Now get out of my studio. So fantastic, fantastic stuff throughout this book. Really, really fun one. This was a really fun discovery. Another one, Drew Morrison. He actually sent me a message on Twitter. Very nice of him. I guess he just had a Kickstarter that ended in April, I think, for issue number 3 of Broken Land. He saw me post on Twitter about this book and sent me a nice message thanking me for, saying nice things about his book, I guess, and saying it was better than the haha silent issue. I love this. Love this book. This was such a fun read. I do want to get my hands on issues 2 and 3. I just haven't done it yet. I think when you backed number 3, there was some incentives where you could get some original art from him. You could get a PDF version or a print version. Obviously, I would want the print versions. Really, really great. Broken Land. Jesse Jacobs, Baby in the Boneyard from not Boneyard Press. Hollow Press. Jesse Jacobs, I've raved about him probably in every second video, so I won't do that much more here, but this is a really, really great one. This is from 2019. Jesse Jacobs is one of one of my favorite cartoonists out there, and I love every single thing that I've read from him. There's nothing bad as far as I'm concerned in his comic output so far. So that's a really, really good one. One that took me by surprise was this Professor Dark. There was only 2 issues of this, unfortunately. Another one where I wish this was an ongoing and there was like 10. I think there was many years in between these 2 issues as well. Such a bizarre and great story. 2015 was issue 1, and what year for issue number 2? 2018 for issue number 2. But I mean, there you go. Do I need to say anything more? This is when you open up the cover. So fucking, it was so good. These 2 issues were such a fun read. He's kind of a Professor Dark is this it's like a cable TV show where he goes around and busts kind of ghost stories to pull the rug out and show what a hoax it is, but of course gets sucked into this other dimension through paintings and stuff like this. And man, it's a good fucking story. It's really, really solid 2 issues. I loved this book a lot. This is right up there at the top of my reads this year as well. So Sonatina Comics is the name of the company. You can still get I think you can still get copies of both of these. If you check out Sonatina Comics, they have a website. Check out their website. I'm sure that you can get copies of both of those still for fairly reasonable prices, and probably a little cheaper if you're ordering from the States. It was a little more for me just because of shipping across the border up here to Canada. And finally, the last 2 books that we'll talk about. Let's end on that one. One that surprised me, and of course, when I looked for issue number 1, there's no way in hell I'm ever going to get my hands on issue number 1. This is a book called Wild. I upgraded. I found another copy. The one that I had originally ordered had some damage on the end, on the spine there, so I found another one because I loved this book so much. So Floss Editions 2020 is when book number 2 here came out. Roller Derby by way of Love and Rockets. I've said it before, there's definitely a Love and Rockets vibe in this storytelling, just with, again, how fleshed out the world seems and how fleshed out the characters seem. Sorry, Tylox. I'll get back to that. I don't remember. It's not on the cover. I will let you know in a minute here, the Professor Dark. This was a fantastic read. I love this oversized volume. It has kind of a Rizzo kind of print quality to it, but a really, really fun book. And like I said, when I searched for issue number 1, there's no way in hell. And this is written and drawn by Christian Castello, published and printed by Floss Editions. And then there's guest artists as well too. Shaheen Beardsley, Lucia Aguilar, Al Gofa, I think, Jesse Garcia, and Bryce Davidson. There's a little bit of a previously in Wild as well, but yeah, another one. I think that this one is still in print, even though this one was 2020. I think you can find this out there, and like I said, I'd recommend this in a heartbeat. Let's have a look for you here. The credits page is at the back here, I think. So Professor Dark, yes, written by Chris Anderson, that's correct. Drawn by Kang Lee. There you go there, Tylox. So Kang Lee was the artist and written by Chris Anderson. Good work, AFPC. You were right on both fronts. But yeah, again, Sonatina Comics, Sonatina. Give them a search. I'm sure you'll find something. And finally, one that I'm so glad I bought. I bit the bullet. This is thanks to Ryan, 4-Color Apocalypse, saying, Terrence, don't be an idiot. Just order the fucking book. Josh Bayer's Theft, Tomorrow Forever. I love this book so much. I've gone back to it a couple of times now and just flipped through it and read a few pages. It's one of those that kind of, as I got into it, it was difficult at first. There was the first few pages where I found it a little difficult and thinking that, fuck, is this going to be a chore? How am I going to get through this? But once I got into the rhythm and got into his world, I absolutely fell in love with this book. This is a really, really great story, focusing on kind of sort of him. It's pretty much Josh Baer by way of a character called Theth. I love the very unique coloring in here. I've heard a podcast where he's talking about his process of coloring and things that he tried digitally with layers and erasing some of the layers to reveal colors underneath to give it this kind of quality. And then the comic within the comic is Black Star, which is based on Briefer's Frankenstein book, which I did a video about, and we talked about this and looked at this in detail. When I ordered this from Josh, he was nice enough to include some original art for me as well, which was just spectacular. Seems like a hell of a guy. I did order the RM, which is the ROM. I have that as well. I don't have it here because I didn't like it as much, but I think that's more because I didn't grow up with ROM as a character. I wasn't really into the comic. My brother was really into it. I didn't get much out of his RM book. The version that I have, he recolored in this same kind of style, so it looked great, but nothing about that book stuck with me. This is the one. I know that Damien picked this up as well too, and because he hasn't talked about it in a video, that can only mean one thing, that it didn't resonate with him as much as it did for me. But I think this is top quality cartooning here, and something different as well. Not something that you see. Yeah, Gutter Boys. That's the one that I listened to, AFPC. It just feels like this is a progression in cartooning and comics. Even if he is kind of pulling from some kind of traditions and things, and he has his fixations. The other thing that I remember sticking with me is it kind of teeters on the edge of poor me, struggling artist. But it does a pretty good job of pulling away from that for me personally, just at a right time before it becomes too overwhelming where I just can't listen to him anymore. He sort of shifts gears and we move to another section of the story. But I love this book a hell of a lot, so I would highly recommend that. Other things notable from this, I mean, Bone. We finished reading the Bone series with our daughter. My wife sat and listened to most of it as well too. That was a hell of a lot of fun. Yeah, I mean, there's so much on here. I won't go through all of the books, but there was a lot I could have pulled out of the bins. Ginseng Roots #1, I really liked. Funnel Planet, From the Darkness, Halo Jones, Gru the Wanderer that I've read, some random heavy metal magazines, Jazz Age Chronicles, etc., etc. There was so much. Night Streets, which was a really fun series. I actually should have pulled that one out. Peanuts Artist Edition, which I got my hands on this year as well. Etc., etc. Of course, Storyteller was in there, but I've talked about Storyteller more times than can be counted. Man, oh man, an hour and 18. That's it. I now have a solid 45 minutes of work putting all these comics away and putting everything back on the shelves. Thank you very much, everybody, for hanging out. Tylox, I hope I didn't overwhelm you too much with some comics that you'll never get your hands on. AFPC, thank you very much for your input. Ragamuffin, always good to see you. Chaos and Comics, thank you very much. Damien, Sleepy Reader. Of course, Mind the Comics, being the first one hanging out in the room. I really appreciate it, G. Always nice to have you hanging out in the chats. That's it. So that was my 500 comics goal for the year. I don't know if I'll do it again, but it sure was fun, kind of helping motivate me to kind of continue reading and just have stuff to talk about every week. And again, like, just bring to your attention some books that maybe just aren't on people's radar, whether it's the small press stuff, whether it's the European stuff, whether this is kind of, the 80s. All of this stuff is why I love comics. Like I said, the first video is chock full of good stuff, but this video here, this is the stuff that really gets me excited. And we'll see you on Sunday. So I will be around on Sunday. The chat will be on my channel. And it'll be the usual time, 2 in the afternoon, Central Standard Time. Thanks very much. 5,000 next. Yeah, right on. Thanks, everybody. Take it easy.